PointClickFish.com. Your connection to the saltwater fishing community brings you Saltwater Fishing Radio. Are you a professional tournament angler, fishing captain, or novice angler looking to learn from the pros?
Listen to live discussions from some of the best in the industry, the biggest TV fishing stars, interviews with captains, sponsors, and fishing teams.
Your trusted source for the latest tournament updates, industry news, and interviews. It's time to talk fishing with your host, Captain J.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the PointClickFish Saltwater Radio Show. We're excited tonight to have a great show lined up, but I know it's had a little bit of a false introduction. Captain Jay is actually on a retreat taking care of some business, and I've got Price on the line here with me tonight. Price, you here?
I'm here tonight, Wayne. How are you doing? I'm excited. We got a great show tonight, and I'm kind of filling in for Jay. I know everybody's used to hearing Jay. There's a possibility he may call in tonight, but if not, Wayne and I have it under control, and we got a great show tonight, Wayne.
Yeah, Jay's got his hands tied up in some official business right now, but we're happy to be back in the studio here on a Thursday night, and we really got a great show, as you mentioned, coming up for the night. With a great guest calling in to share some more information on the South Florida fishery. We talked last week to Peter Miller from Bass to Billfish, who's really been reaching out to that Florida audience recently, and we want to remind people that they can still catch that. Price, tell us how they can listen into that last show.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's several ways that you can do. One, you can go to PointClickFish.com, and you'll see our radio button over on the right-hand side. And you can go hit the radio button, and you can find the podcast. Every show that we do here, even the one tonight, will be recorded. And if you have iTunes or Android, it works on any device. So you go over there, hit the show. And then, of course, like Wayne said, last week we had a very, very popular show with Peter Miller with Bass to Billfish. And, Peter's just one of those guys that is just he's been around the industry so long, and he's just a professional at what he does. And so we got a lot of good feedback, and a lot of people have sent us some questions on social media asking about Peter. So we reached out to Peter, and we said that we're definitely for sure going to have to do another show with him sometime in the future. So people are really excited to hear Peter Miller.
Yeah, well, he's got a great reputation, and the South Florida fishery in and of itself right now at this time of year just really attracts a lot of attention. We talked about it last week that while the rest of us are in the middle of our winter blues and kind of cabin fever sets in, South Florida fishing's like fall. It's on fire down there right now. It's great to get an update from him, and luckily we're starting to see signs of spring in our area now. The groundhog came through and gave us a good prediction, and we're looking forward to some warming water temperatures, which is going to really trigger the fishing here along the North Carolina coast. Of course, most of our regular listeners know that we're based out of Morehead City, the Crystal Coast area. And here off the Carolina coast over the past week, I've seen some pretty good reports. We had a couple of boats from the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center that went out offshore, and the bluefin were there. There were a couple of bluefin that were landed out of that area, so that bite's getting started and continuing to roll on through the winter season. And some yellowfin showed up too, which is, a great sign for anglers that are out targeting these larger pelagic species. Yellowfin, of course, are great table fare, and the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center is rocking and rolling right now and getting ready to, have a good tuna season, I'm sure, anticipating the spring and summer season as well. And here in the Morehead City area, the inshore bite continues to be, be pretty good, almost like a fall pattern. We had that one cool down where it got cold and stayed, around freezing for 3 or 4 days in a row, but then it warmed right back up again. So speckled trout have gone back on feed. There's been pretty good reports of anglers being able to catch plenty of fish around, Boca Inlet and back into Haystacks areas along and around Morehead City. The red drum down near Swansboro are stood up in the inshore waters. They move back and forth from the ocean out the inlet and back into the Swansboro holes, back in some of the creeks and rivers back there. And there's been good reports of some fish stood up back there, 400 or 500 fish at a time, which offers some just great sight casting opportunities. really, really fun angling for this time of year. So even though, water temperatures are down in the low 50s, warming back up again hopefully soon, there's still a pretty good bite for those red drum back in the inshore waters right now too. So it's certainly no reason to keep the boat put away. It's a good opportunity to get out on the water, to learn more about what's going on in the area. But we still kind of got our sights set on southern destinations. Right now in North Carolina, we hear a lot of people who are down in the state of Florida, who are going to Mexico, going to Costa Rica. Those types of destinations really just attract a lot of anglers through the winter season. And we're really, really excited to have on another great captain from the southwest Florida coast, Captain-Jesse-McDowall of Florida Inshore Xtream Charters is going to be calling in with us tonight, talking to us a little bit about his guide business and the fish that he targets. And, hopefully we'll get a chance to learn a lot about what's going down in the area around Boca Grande tonight as he calls in.
Well, I was going to say, Wayne, we have our guest with us tonight, and so I know we are excited, and I'll let you start.
Yeah, Captain Jesse, you here with us?
Hey, Wayne. Hey, Price. What's going on, gentlemen?
Not a lot, man. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to call in and talk with our audience a little bit about what you've got happening down your way, down in South Florida.
Hey, my pleasure. I was very excited when Price asked me, and you guys, we finally got a chance to chit chat, and invited me to come in and show. So yeah, absolutely, I'm excited to do all this. It's been a while since I've been on the radio, so forgive me if things get a little rusty sometimes, but I'm sure we'll get some flow going here in just a second. But Price and I had a chance to chit chat a little bit today about what was going on down here, and actually, yeah, we've had we have a great fishery down here. Especially, I'm sorry to hear you guys are so cold right now. I've seen there's a pretty big front going through. I'm sure you guys are getting wet. We're getting ready to get some of it as well down here, but definitely not as cold as it is down here as it is for you guys up there. But
well, it's all relative, and as weather patterns move through, we look forward to spring. And I know this time of year down there, there's a lot going on. But before we get into a recent fishery report, why don't you share with us for our audience a little bit how you got started running the charter service, a little bit about your history of fishing that area. I know you're a fourth-generation waterman out of the southwest Florida coast. Is that right?
Yep, I am. A lot of family history with fishing here as far as my family goes. I mean, I never really remember learning how to fish. It was just something that we did growing up. My dad and his dad before that, they were all fishermen. Obviously different venues of what they did for a profession, but I think the fishing stuff is probably what kept us going to do our real jobs. But background for me, I did a lot of bass fishing growing up. It's kind of like a lot of your good saltwater fishermen started out bass fishermen. So that's kind of teaches you the fundamentals, the basics, and how to read a fish for the most part. And saltwater fishing isn't that much of a transition as far as the fishing goes. The patterns are similar. You kind of have to, you get a chance to read, where the fish are going to be and all that kind of good stuff like that. So, transitioning over to saltwater fishing for us, growing up, we were not only fishing, we were, scuba diving and all that kind of good stuff as well growing up. So not only did you get to fish above the water, but, when you're diving, you get a chance to see their habitat. You get to see how they act, how they look at things, what you're actually fishing on, which will kind of tie in later on a little bit as we talk about the boat stuff, like gear and things like that later on the show. But, yeah, definitely. Then I joined the Army out of high school back in 1990, went to basic training, and then fast forward 20 years after being an Army Mariner for that amount of time. So I have a lot of experience not only fishing, but, being on the water and being a professional mariner as far as that goes. I got a lot of miles under my belt. And then one of the things that we always used to say as far as, our fishing from our Army boats it wasn't necessarily fishing. It was called survival gear, and then what we caught was emergency rations. So that's all about, like you say, wording. And then after I got done with the military, I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do? I really don't want to go get a job, at Walmart or wherever. And, I was like, well, I go fishing anyway, so I'm probably going to be going. So I might as well just keep going and maybe do it professionally. So luckily enough, my military license was able to transfer right over. I have a 100-ton, and I could probably upgrade it to a 200-ton if I really wanted to. But, for us, that's kind of overkill for being just a lowly charter captain. But So that's how it kind of went. You know, I started my business up and just ground it out, and, you know, a lot of money goes into it, and then, you know, eventually it starts to kind of pay off for you, and you're able to, you know, not only live a good lifestyle, but have fun at doing it, you know. And I think that that's really what, you know, keeps me going as being a charter captain, because, you know, fishing is one thing, but being able to take people fishing and put them on fish, that's a whole, you know, different level. So once you kind of master that, everything's kind of fun. So, you know, I think that's what does it for me, is because I actually enjoy seeing people catch fish. You know, some people, they like to fish, they like to catch fish, but for me, you know, I really enjoy not only seeing people catch fish, but you know, enjoy teaching them a little bit, because, you know, being in the military, we were, you know, as an NCO, I was always teaching people stuff too. I mean, you're always constantly teaching. So, you know, that's a big part of, you know, Kelly and my business is that's what we do, is we teach people, you know, to fish, not just take them fishing and say, here's a fishing pole, but, you know, here's why, and here's what you do, and here's how you target these fish, you know, so that when you want to go fishing, you know, you have a little bit more knowledge. Or if you'd like to come back and fish with us some more, you know, it's a little bit easier. We can spend more time fishing rather than teaching you how to fish. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, well, you make a lot of good points, but first and foremost, we at PointClickFish certainly want to thank you for the years of service that you put in. It's quite an honor to have somebody that spent so much time on the water in so many different areas, doing so many different things as, you know, part of our network and calling in for the show. And you make a great point that with bass fishing, that translates so well to a lot of the inshore fishing tactics that we have. A lot of the same lures work, a lot of the same structure and habitat where the fish live. So it's, you know, it is interesting to talk to different people and to hear how many people did get their start like you and I did, you know, bass fishing.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree. I mean, you hear it a lot. I mean, I use that point. I do a lot of seminars too. So, you know, once a month I'll do a seminar down here at West Marine, and normally they kind of pack us in this little corner over there. And like our last seminar we did, we probably had 60 or 70 people that were talking. And, you know, I always kind of start my seminars out with is, you know, what can I, you know, I have a topic to talk about, but it's more geared towards what can I tell you guys, or what can we talk about that, you know, you're interested in? What is it that you guys want to talk about that I can teach you? So that's kind of, you know, I enjoy it. And I always get, you know, afterwards I get comments, and, you know, people come up to me and they're like, man, that was a really great seminar you did, you know. So I get enjoyment out of that as well. So that's another one of the aspects of it. It's really fun to me.
Yeah, well, a good guide is also an educator in a lot of ways, and I know that you know, worked hard to create a partnership with what you do with Captain Kelly Everly, and it sounds like she's got that same passion and that same, you know, enthusiasm for teaching people about the saltwater fisheries there in your area.
Yeah, it's really cool because she and I met a few years back, and her grandfather and her dad booked a trip with me, and we just clicked. You know, that was one of those things where you meet that person and you felt like you've known that person for many, many years. And not only, you know, did we hit it off, but she's a phenomenal fisherman. I mean, it's really, I kind of get a giggle out of it because you see a lot of, you know, men that have, you know, fished for many, many years, and they kind of underestimate her. You know, she's a pretty woman, you know, on top of that, but yet here she is, a charter boat captain that'll outfish probably 99% of the guys that she, you know, that will fish, you know, with a woman to begin with. But, you know, I mean, she's a very, very good angler. So, I mean, I couldn't be happier with her in as far as being a part of, and it's our business together. It's not just my business. It's just as much hers, because she puts a lot of hours into, like, the website. And Price, you guys can kind of vouch for me here as well. I mean, you guys took a look at our website, and you're like, wow, that's really good. You've done it, but you guys are going to do a better job for us. So we're excited about that as well.
Yeah, that's what's funny is when we first met you guys, and you said, hey, you want to update a website? And I can't tell you the horror stories that when Jay and I, being in the web business, we get some characters as far as to say we have, you know, no web presence or anything. Well, you guys are kind of the exact opposite. You guys are blogs,
that's what she had said.
Pictures. And so, yeah, I mean, you guys, you did everything right. It's like, yeah, what can we do to enhance it? So that's all Jay and I are doing is just enhancement. Yeah, you guys are definitely a great example. And later on in the show, we'll talk more about y'all's website and kind of talking about what we're doing with you guys, and then, of course, how people can get in touch with you for charters.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's have some fun. Let's talk more fishing. What other questions you guys have for me as far as what we can talk about? Because I like to talk if you haven't noticed already.
Well, and you can tell you love fishing, too. Tell us a little bit about the boats that y'all fish from and the habitats that you use those boats to kind of venture out.
Sure, absolutely. A lot of people kind of, you know, don't really realize, they say that, they have these boats or they have those boats and stuff like that. But I tell you something that I have kind of realized as far as being a boat operator for, all these years is, every little area, whether it be, Maine or whether it be on the East Coast, West Coast, whatever, they kind of have their boats that the local people there that have designed and kind of, tweaked and perfected and kind of, well, this is why that we have this stuff here. Well, down here in our area, we have, just like you guys do there, kind of on the Albemarle Sound and the areas that you guys fish up there, Chesapeake Bay, whatnot, it's very similar. We live in an area that we're fortunate enough to have and we call it, it's kind of been coined the tarpon capital of the world, but the base style of boat that we use, and I have a 24-foot Pathfinder TRS, and the reason why we choose those style of boats, that center console with the big open boat, me personally, that's probably one of the biggest questions that I get. Hey, Captain Jesse, what kind of boat should I buy? Well, the first thing usually my reply back to them is that what is it that you're going to do in it, 90-95% of the time, because they say, oh, we want a boat that we can get in and out of the weather when the weather's bad and all this kind of stuff. I said, whoa, hold on, let's stop right there, back up a little bit. Are you buying a fishing boat, or are you buying a boat that you want to do something with the family most part of the time? That's the question that you need to answer first and foremost. But for me, a fishing boat is the ideal fishing boat for me is a center console, lots of fishing room, lots of storage, big live well, that kind of stuff. And my Pathfinder is kind of that. When you choose a boat, sometimes you're going to have to kind of settle here or settle there for a certain thing. But with the Pathfinder that I have, it kind of gives me the best of both worlds. Now, Kelly's boat, she has a shallow draft, which is, again, is like a locally made boat here, and that thing is absolutely a barge. It's a platform for the shallow water guys, because it's a 24-foot flats boat that's absolutely flat pretty much on the bottom of it with a 9-foot beam. And that thing is very, very stable. And it's got a 225 Yamaha on the back of it. And, it's not a speed demon by any means, but that thing will run with probably 6 people on it. It'll run in about, 6 to 8 inches of water. Now, sometimes that's a little bit scary, but, if the ability has the ability to do that. So, but with my boat, with the Pathfinder, it'll sit with, with a little bit of more water than that. It'll sit in about 12 inches or so, depending on what your load is. And I've got the new current model 250, the F250 four-stroke on there. And I tell you, that motor right there is an absolute dream. It's computer-driven. It's fly-by-wire type stuff. The fuel economy alone, had I known what kind of fuel economies these newer motors are getting, I probably would have gone with the 300. But I was kind of thinking more, weight and, a little bit more displacement as far as the fuel stuff goes. But I'll get with 4 or 5, 6 people in the boat, I'm getting, 2.8 to 3.5 miles per gallon with this boat. So it's really good. But it also allows me to do both. It's one of those boats that's kind of a hybrid, and it doesn't get real shallow. But yet, if I want to fish, for snook and redfish in the morning and then run offshore a little bit, it allows me to do that. And I tell you, I bought that boat back in 2014. I ordered it straight from the manufacturer, and my year model was the first one they actually put the towers. They had put T-tops on there in some of the other boats, but they hadn't really started putting towers on the boat yet. And I believe that my boat was probably one of the first, if not the first, with the tower on it. And my boat's got an 8-foot tower on it as well. Yeah. And so does Kelly's boat. But I remember, funny, I said, I want, because the fellow that built it for me over at TT Customs right there by where they put the Pathfinders together, Skip Larson and I were kind of chit-chatting back and forth, and they put me in contact with the fellow that was doing the tower, and he says, okay, well, what do you want? And I said, well, take all that fiberglass stuff off. All I want is a tower, and I want a platform to stand on and my helm up there, and then I want as many rod holders as you can get on it. And he's like, okay, well, we'll see what we can do for you. Well, they ended up getting 17 rod holders on the tower alone. So, and I remember getting an email back from Skip when they finally finished it and sent it over to the plant to put it on the boat. And he emailed me. He's like, dang, son, how many rod holders do you need? And I emailed him back and said, well, I could probably use a couple more. There's some areas up there we can stick a couple more in there. And that's kind of what I want to say, too, is having all those rod holders, it gets the rods up and out of the way so you have a lot more fishing room. Because, when we go take people on the trip, I'm taking not just one rod per person. I'm taking I'm taking my drop rods, I'm taking my big spinning rods, and take a bunch of because for us you never know what in the world is going to come up on you. 1 minute you're fishing for snook and redfish and trout in the shallow water, and then you want to change gears. You want to run outside. Hey, let's go dig for some grouper or, or whatever it is. So you have to have a lot of options.
In front of you, you got to have something ready for whatever shows up.
Exactly, and I don't know how many times that happens to us. You're fishing for whatever, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a cobia. I mean, I've done that before too. We're sitting in 3 feet of water catching trout on a popper cork and a shrimp. The next thing you know, there's our, all my equipment's all pinned. So there you goes that the inshore combo with a 20-pound leader on there, and there's a 33-inch cobia. Bang, he hits that one, then the other one hits the other one, then you got two cobias swimming around on a Conflict 3000. So it gets pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So you never know what in the world you're going to catch. So you always got to have pretty much everything that you take along with you.
Well, that's one of the sure signs of a good captain, is one who's well prepared for whatever could come up. And with your boat, I've been on a number of Pathfinders myself. They are the perfect crossover that gives you the opportunity to fish that skinny water and also get out off, like you said, off the beach a little ways. Even if the wind picks up a little bit, you usually feel pretty comfortable. And it's they make great boats, and having that tower probably gives you the opportunity to see the fish before your clients do, and allows you to help point it out exactly where they need to be.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I couldn't say enough good things about that Pathfinder. It's a good, solid boat. It's a great platform. It performs well. And they changed the hull on it just a little bit in that year, because the previous years the front of it was a little bit more of a slope, and they pushed it out just a little bit, I believe. And then, so it gets it nose down a little bit, and it's able to cut that little bit of chop. I mean, I'm running, I've had people say, wow, you are driving this boat like there's no tomorrow. But yet it's safe. It feels great. It handles that top well. And if you get it dialed in just right, I mean, that boat will go through some pretty, the second week that I owned it, we slipped offshore a little bit, just putting some hours on it, getting out there and getting a feel for her, and putting it through the paces, make sure everything was running right. And we get about 20 miles offshore, which, for us, we're still only about, 50 feet of water, because we got to get pretty far out there to get offshore. So, we slip out there, and I've got the kids with me, and, summertime, those thunder bumpers come up pretty quick, and I look back at the shoreline, and Kelly says, "You see that, right?" I said, "Mm-hmm. Yep, I see that." Sometimes you can kind of wait it out, and it'll blow north or south. And, we waited for a few minutes, and then, I kind of had that sinking feeling like, oh, boy, this is going to get bad real quick, So I kind of crossed my fingers and hoped that it'd blow over, but it didn't. It came right at us, and it went from glass calm to a ripple, and I said, we got to go right now. I felt the temperature drop, It's like, oh, man, it's coming. So we battened everything down, closed all the hatches, put the rods away, set the kids on the deck, and I punched it, man, and I had that 250 wide open as long as I could, and we started to hit a 1-foot chop, a 2-foot chop, 3-foot chop, and then just kind of went into we were in 7 to 8 foot seas in that boat. And I tell you what, it took every single swell. I mean, we had a couple small waves kind of crest over the front of the boat, but open the drains in the back, the water gets out. Actually, it was warmer when the water came in the boat than the rain was. So it was, but put it through some paces, and built a lot of confidence in a boat like that when you're like, man, this thing is a tough boat.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously on the water a lot, and I know that down your way you may not have the same seasons that we have up here, but I know you still do have some seasonality to your fishing. And right now, I'm assuming you're in your winter season. What's the local fishing report right now, and what are you typically doing this time of year down on the water?
Well, see, that's kind of the good thing for us. I mean, unless we get a really, really cold snap, and most of the time for us, it'll be cooler, in the morning or over in the night periods, but then usually by about 10 or 11 o'clock, everything's kind of warmed back up a little bit. So we have a pretty good trout bite in the wintertime. The snook can be a little bit fickle as far as the temperature goes. Once our water temps, get down around 60 or below, they kind of go into like a survival mode. And you can see them, they're right there, but you can throw everything at them. You can throw bait at them. You can throw whatever at them, and you ain't going to catch them. But
they're just not eating.
Yeah, they just kind of get, and especially if it does it real fast. I feel like you have 80 degrees. Like yesterday was like 80 degrees, but in the water temperature is probably mid 60s now, which is okay. But if you get a real cold night and that water temperature drops down real low like that, then they go into survival mode and they're like, whoa. So you have to move out into a little bit deeper water to 6-foot range, and then those afternoons. And I'm sure you guys kind of do the same thing. You find those black, muddy bottoms that warm up quick, and that's where the fish are going to be. So,
Yep, that muddy bottom holds some heat, and then the shallow water, as long as they've got access between the shallow water and the deep water to move back and forth, they get comfortable there on those flats. And we up here in North Carolina, we get the redfish in shallow water in the winter, and we can get them to feed in water as cold as 45 degrees. I've been able to get them to eat. Now they're not as active as they are, in the spring and summer season, but I guess it's nice not to have to worry about that. That probably sounds pretty cold to you down there in Boca Grande.
Yeah, right. And plus, not only that, you have the inshore side of the house. But if that's not working for you too well, all you got to do is you turn around, you go out about 3 or 4 miles, and we've got, a really, the snapper, the mangrove snapper, the grouper and stuff. Those guys are really, really heat up. And the cold doesn't really seem to affect them that much. And plus, you're right there on the Gulf, so you get, water temperatures are a little bit more steady. Rarely do they drop down below 60s, and normally you see them, 61, 62, 63. Or even higher. I think the other day it was like 68 or 67 at one point. Latter part of the day, I think I was seeing like 69s, like almost up to 70. So that type of water for the grouper, we have red grouper, we have gag grouper, you get blacks, the mangrove snapper, lane snapper. We even get, a fair amount of yellowtail snapper up here, believe it or not, which is surprising because we're kind of far north for that. But in the wintertime, you get a lot of the triple tails. So, as long as the crab pots are out and they're pretty easily accessible, you can run up and down the crab pot lines and just drive along, and as long as the weather's decent for you, you can cover a lot of ground and find those triple tail, and they're usually pretty easy to catch. There's not too many times when you don't plop a nice juicy shrimp down in front of them and they don't pound it. So,
yeah, and they're such cool fish. I said they're such cool fish too. The way they hang at the surface and kind of use that structure from that crab pot float or whatever debris they've got out there on the water. Not bad eating either.
Oh, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal eating. Yeah, absolutely. So, and we have another type of fish that we get too. Have you ever heard of the hogfish or hog snapper?
Yep, have.
Yeah, those guys are really fun to catch too. And if you can, now we've got a lot of the other stuff like grunts and porgies and all the little fish that are bait stealer type stuff. But if you can get it dialed in, it's not uncommon for us to catch a lot of hogfish on the bottom on the reefs. So we have a lot of hard bottom out here. It's lime rock. So we get a lot of that we fish out here. So that's pretty good stuff too. And it usually holds a lot of fish. And if you can find a place with a good number of fish on it, you sit in one spot and you can wear them out. So we did real good with a gag grouper and a lot of mangs and a lot of lane snapper the other day too. I mean, folks come out and they have a really good time just catching fish. Sometimes they just want to catch fish. Like we just want to catch a bunch of fish. I'm like, all right, we're going to go out here. We'll go snapper and grouper fishing. And every now and then too, we had something on. I think it was we actually pulled a couple bonita in the other day too on our last trip, and those things are always fun because they do the circle. They go around the boat just like those big tuna that you guys get up there as well, but they're a little bit smaller scale. So, but still fun to catch. They pull some drag real hard.
Yep, sounds like on light tackle they're a lot of fun, and you've got a real good mixed bag. It sounds like on the bottom fishing and between the limestone reef ledges and the shallow water flats. It's a lot of really good fish habitat, it sounds like.
Yeah, it is. It's probably one of the areas that's it's kind of why we chose this. And there's a lot of guides that are here in this area because there's so much options that you have. If one fishing's bad, like I said, you just pick up stake, move over a little bit, try something else. Hey, inshore bite maybe a little bit slow today just because of the tide. You guys want to go try something different. So we have a lot of weapons in our arsenal to be able to choose and pick from, so that we can tailor your trip. What makes it really hard though is if somebody says, "Hey, I want to go catch redfish." There's so many options out here. You want to limit us to that. And some days they can be good and some days they can be bad. So
having some diversity in the waters is nice. And of course, I know you're right on the cusp of waiting for your kind of peak season for your tarpon fishery. You mentioned a little while ago that area down where you're at is really well recognized as a great tarpon area to go and target tarpon. Tell us a little bit about what you're planning with the big fish. I'm sure you've got juveniles that are hanging out around the mangroves pretty much year-round too. Tell us about the tarpon fishery down at your reef.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty good industry. I mean, not even that, like my son, their schools, they do a lot of juvenile fish tagging, so they'll go in some of the estuaries and the shallower stuff, and they'll pull in the nets with the FWC. Actually, Kelly worked with FWC for a couple of years, as until she got big enough to be in the full-time charter captain, which we both are full-time charter captains. And so that was kind of cool because, they got to go tag these juvenile tarpon and then let them go, and they did studies and they measure them and, all kinds of good stuff with that. So it's not just, we go out there and see the migrating tarpon, but we do have local fish that are here as well that kind of hang around year-round. around the Peace and the Mayaca River, which is kind of odd because, years past, you don't necessarily see those fish that are out on the beach. Well, January, because our season was so warm, our winters have been so warm, Kelly and I were jumping tarpon in January on the beach, so it was kind of unheard of. And we had a really good Goliath grouper season as well, so we're spooling up for that, and Price is going to give us a good push with that as well as far as doing the website stuff for us. I mean, a lot of people call us, and we've been fielding phone calls a lot here lately for our 2016 tarpon season, which I tell you, if you've got a itch to get in that, you better do it early, because what'll happen is a lot of folks are filled up, and then when you get filled up, some of the guys, kind of take advantage of that a little bit, and you'll end up paying a lot more for wood than what you should. I mean, we try to be fair, but as most as you can, but there's a delicate balance in there between being able to, operate your business and still, give people, a good value for their money. And most times what we do is pretty fair. It's not, it's not something that you're trying to gouge people out. But when you're paying $50 a dozen for crabs, you get out there and you're running 2 trips a day, and you got 3 anglers on the boat. That $50 adds up pretty quick. So. Yep.
Well, I'm sure when they show up, it becomes a method of just general business practice, supply and demand, and you obviously focus a lot of your energy around that fishery. And it's good to hear that you stay pretty busy that time of year. Tell us a little bit about the gear and kind of the techniques that you use when you're targeting those big fish.
Well, which big fish are you talking about? Are you talking about the tarpon, or are you talking about the other fellow there?
We'll get to the tarpon here in a second. Talk more about the tarpon fishery. What type of gear and what kind of techniques do you use when you're going out looking for the big tarpon when they show up?
Well, there's 2 different styles of fishing. I do mostly the beach fishing and sight casting and stuff, and then the other one that the guys are fishing the pass. I try to steer clear of that, not because of any gripes or complaints or anything like that, but I prefer the challenge, if you will, of positioning the boat correctly, getting out there in front of the fish, making that good cast, and putting that crab right where it needs to be, and then having that the light tackle feel. The other type that they fish inside the pass, they have a little bit heavier gear. They're using conventionals, a little bit heavier lines. We're using what I like to throw is I have the Spinfisher 6500s, and spool that up with about 40 to 50 pound braid, depending on, it's kind of a toss up between, I always like to call it getting bit or getting broke. If you go too light, you're going to break your line, or they're going to part it some way or another. But if you go too heavy, then you cut down on your castability, being able to make that throw. And you can throw that little 3-finger crab is the way we call them, but you can throw that little crab pretty far with 40-pound braid and an 8-foot battalion coupled up with that Spinfisher 6500. So that's my preferred weapons of choice right there. And then we'll also couple that with some fluorocarbon leader. I'd like to use about couple arms length worth of, and I kind of made a little knot. It was very similar to an Albright knot, but I kind of pulled it and changed it a little bit because of the lines that we used to use in the Army with our heaving lines, our main line to our mooring line, or our heaving line to our mooring line, rather. And I kind of took that same principle and I kind of made a little knot. I call it the Placida knot, which is kind of where we here are in Placida and Englewood. So that's kind of cool, too. It's a really small knot. It's really easy to tie, and I'm always showing the people at the seminars with them, and it winds right on that. A lot of times they'll use like a double uni or, blood knots and things like that, and you go to throw, and you'll hear that go through your rod guides from the monofilament from the braid or the fluorocarbon to the braid. You'll hear it kind of go through your guides. But this little knot here, I can cut it to a real small tag in, and then I'll pull a couple of those the fluorocarbon over it, and you barely even hear it go through it, which to me translates into distance, because anything that drags is going to cut your castability down a little bit. Yep. So that's kind of one of the things that I do there too. So the fluorocarbon, you couple that with a like a 6/0 Gamakatsu 3X or 4X hook, and I tell you what, you're in business right there, my friend.
Well, looking at your website, it's pretty obvious that you've got them dialed in when they show up, and I encourage people, and we'll talk more about the website again in a few minutes, but definitely encourage people to take a look at what you've done. You catch a lot of really nice fish down there, and it's pretty obvious to me that you're using the right gear. You're bringing those fish to the boat fairly quickly and releasing them healthy.
Yep, and that's what we definitely try to do. I mean, we have a pretty big problem too with the sharks. That time of the year, you get a lot of bull sharks and a lot of big hammerheads. Now, I'm saying big hammerheads. I'm talking like 18-footers, and you get these packs of 8 and 10-foot bull sharks that are just, the bull sharks are probably the worst because they just, when they attack, they just pounce on it. They give no quarry to the tarpon whatsoever. They get hit, it's done. You can call that. The hammerheads now, the hammerheads come in, they're usually a little slower. They're not quite as, as, I guess, eager, if you will, to pounce on those fish, and they'll chase them down, and they finally will get them. But a lot of times what we'll do is if we see a shark, or you can actually tell when the tarpon comes out of the water, they kind of get to that point where they're, okay, I'm about done, and then all of a sudden they just go berserk, and that's like usually a shark's on them, because those sharks bird dog those tarpon, after you're fighting them for, 20, 30 minutes, half hour. Yeah. You'll see them. As Kelly's been in the tower as I'm down, with the customer trying to, give them a little, because I'm a coach, I'm like, hey, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, relax, enjoy it, this type of stuff. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, look at that shark. And a lot of times these hammerheads will come right underneath the boat. I mean, this shark is almost as big as the boat is, and that's a pretty big boy, and so that's a lot of the troubles that we have too. So there's a balance in there. Once that tarpon, starts getting that, gets antsy, we just usually will open up the bail and let them run and try to at least get them away for a minute. Take the boat, we'll try to drive right up on top of the shark and trying to chase them away. And most of the time they do, they'll get away, but every now and then they'll get them. So we're always sad of that. So we try to protect them as much as we can.
Sharks got to make a living out there too, I guess, but.
Well, that's why they're there. They're there to eat.
That's right.
It's just like a bait fish, The big fish are going to be where the bait fish are. So.
Yep. Now, speaking of big fish, I know your bread and butter is really that tarpon fishery, but you're also doing a lot with the glass grouper, I can tell, down in your area. What a great success story from a conservation perspective. Share with us a little bit about how you feel about that fishery at this point.
Well, the Goliath grouper thing, it's one of those things that. People call us and they say, well, we want to do this. How many can we catch? And a lot of it's dependent on the season and just the weather that we've had. But one of the things that we always try to get across to folks, and it's always, we use catch words, phrase words, if you will, like school bus, freight train, hooking onto the back of the pickup truck, have your wife drive away with it, taking a Volkswagen, throwing it over the side of the boat, because that's, and I always say that description is inept, and I kid you not, this is a full contact sport, and if you get it to a point where you get it dialed in and it becomes fun, but yet at the same time it's a little bit risky. I know you guys, Mark Davis is a pretty good friend of ours, and we've been fishing with him a lot too, and I'm sure that you guys have picked his brain on that as well, and he'll tell you the same thing. He's broken rods, but all the time, we have some of our buddies that are lost a rod over the boat because you get tied into a big fish and the customer can't hold on to it. But I tell you, I've got a little system that I've started to work a little bit, and I have a really good friend of mine who makes these fighting chairs. He actually made it for the tarpon, but we've been putting it through some really tests with the Goliath grouper as well. I mean, it's well above and beyond. It's called deck gear. It looks like a little bit like a bar stool, but it's got a quarter-inch stainless steel plate that the gimbal is mounted to on top of the bar stool stuff that they make is made out of the same stuff they make the towers out of and the T-tops. So it's really good, high-quality aluminum. And I tell you what, I couldn't tell you the number of fish that I put across this thing, and I have yet to break one. So it's pretty good. Check them out, Deck Gear, and a real good friend of mine, Mark. He's actually a firefighter, and he made these chairs just because he likes the tarpon fish and kind of turned it into, a little business. So, I mean, that's kind of a good way to go that way. But we use, here's to give you an example, we use like 650 to 700 pound monofilament with a 20-aught circle hook, and usually we're using anywhere from about, a pound and up of worth of lead, and about a 16-inch stingray. That's what we use for bait there. And I tell you what, that's when you get a bite. People are like, how do I know I'm going to get a bite? And I'm like, you're going to know. Just trust me. There's a whole bunch of little, tips and tricks that we have to do to keep, folks safe. And usually Kelly's down here with them too, keep them safe. And I'm driving the boat, and I've got the Minn Kota iPilot, 112. So that thing's got some pretty good thrust to it. And there's a lot of times, too, when, those things grab a hold of it and you get a good hook set on them. They're pulling that Pathfinder around. They pull that 24-foot Pathfinder around like no problem whatsoever. So I use the main engine and the trolling motor there kind of in tandem, like a bow thruster. And a lot of the helicopter pilots have always kind of told me that it's kind of like driving a helicopter is like standing on top of a ball trying to juggle, all at the same time. It takes some dexterity and stuff. And driving that trolling motor while they're anglers fighting the fish, and you're in the current usually too, so you're either stern to the current backing up the whole time. I tell you what, it gets hairy and it gets challenging sometimes, and sometimes our anglers will get pulled off that chair. Luckily we have a dummy cord, dog leash clip onto the rod itself, and it's tied to the chair, which the chair has got a turnbuckle to it, so it's bolted to the deck. So that thing's pretty sturdy, and their pride gets hurt a little bit sometimes, but like I say, it's a full contact sport. When those jokers get a hold of it and they make a run, there's not many times you get to stop them. They usually they'll wear you out. So when you're dealing with fish that's 2-3 times bigger than you are, it's no surprise that you have people that get lifted up out of that chair. And looking at your website, I see that sometimes you get into the water to get the picture with them. I was curious how many people got into the water on their own on a quarter, how many were actually pulled in. We fish pretty close to. There's a Boca Grande has a really deep channel, that runs through there. Some of the parts of it are like 70 foot deep. So, the Goliath grouper, they have a tendency to come back kind of to their same areas, and they're creatures of habit, and they're in there because there's a lot of water that goes across there. Just like anywhere else, you have a nice little funnel. That funnel is going to squirt, water through there, which is going to translate into good, clean water, and a lot of food that's going to come across there. So they don't have to expend a whole bunch of energy, to go look for food. It comes to them. I always say in my seminars too that, fish are efficient. They're not, say all people are fish are lazy. No, they're not. They're doing a mathematical calculation to figure out how much energy do I need to expend to chase that piece of bait to what I'm going to get in return in energy. So a lot of times, they're looking at it. They know it's there. And then that's how, when you're bass fishing, you've got to get that reaction strike stuff. They don't have a chance to think about it. They just bang, they eat it. So, and that's why those fish are there. So that's kind of, that's one of those things. It pushes a lot of water and brings a lot of food to them.
Yes, it's great that they've made the recovery that they have and that they're available for, guys like you that are down there targeting them. You can tell that more and more people are, getting the chance to do battle with some pretty amazing fish. Yep. And I know there's a lot of other stuff that you do down there too. So, make sure to fill us in on the other stuff that you target while you're out there.
Yeah, well, one more thing about the Goliath is, a lot of folks are, claim that they're nuisance, which, sometimes you can be. If you're out there trying to target, snapper and grouper, a lot of times if you don't have the right gear and, get that fish up and out of there really quickly, then, of course, those Goliath grouper are going to take advantage of that opportunity. Sure. They see a fish in distress, and it's just like you fishing with a filtered or something. They see a fish in distress, bang, they're going to eat it. And that's the same thing. And they're opportunistic. They're going to take advantage of that. And a lot of people say, oh, they're down there eating all the, grouper and the snapper, and there's not going to be any fish left because the Goliath grouper are eating everything. No, not necessarily the case. That's, we've heard the term too. That's like a school bus trying to catch a Ferrari. It's not going to happen. I mean, I've been diving with them down there, and I've seen the snapper and the grouper swimming right around them, and they never bother them. But I tell you what, you put one on the hook or you shoot one with a spear gun, that's a different story, and you're going to have some issues there. So
they're a native species, and they're just about they're overfished pretty heavily at one point back in the past, and again, it's good to see them come back so that that they're surviving. I'm like you, I've done a lot of diving down in the Keys and South Florida area, and when you see them, they're very territorial. They don't chase too far off where they're at, and definitely a fish that I'm glad to see has made a good recovery.
Yeah, I kind of think that they'd like to, I mean, this is from a guide's aspect of it, but picking one or two here and there probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, there are a lot of fish, and some people, unfortunately, what they're doing too is they'll go down there and they'll take a, bank stick. I mean, they're obviously not supposed to be doing this, but I've seen them, and I've seen dead Goliath before too, where folks are going down and they're taking matters into their own hands. But so I think maybe the state should maybe open it up a little bit like they do with the alligator tags. You get so many tags per year or whatever it is, and you're allowed to take a couple, and it would kind of help the economy as well, because if folks want to pay for it, you charge them $1,000 for a tag or something like that. It's gonna definitely put a limitation on who's going to buy them, because not everybody's going to get them. But then at the same time, it's kind of helps put money back into the state for whatever they need to do.
Yep. Now, like I was saying earlier, I don't want to move on from Goliath grouper too fast, because I know they're an exciting fishery, but I also know that in the area you're at, you see a lot of different stuff. You had mentioned red drum and snook, and we talked a little bit about cobia. I've seen on your page you catch some kings here and there.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about the other the fish species that you target, and a little bit how you go about deciding what you're looking for on any given day.
Yeah, well, you definitely you'll have seasons where fish move through, like the pelagics. You'll have the kings and the Spanish. You'll have permit. We have pompano, and we said the triple tail, and you get a lot of other small fish or the other fish that'll come through too. Like I said, sometimes we get the tuna that'll come through. You get those little blackfin tuna. You get the bonita schools that'll come through. You have jacks and ladyfish, and so there's just a wide, and a lot of it too is like kid-friendly fishing is another, something you'll see on our websites as far as it goes. Kids don't care what they catch. They just want to go out, and as long as they're catching fish one after another, they could care less about what they're doing. And that was a lot of, a lot of things that Kelly and I kind of pride ourselves on as well, Just get the kids out there and let them have fun, There's sheep's head, right now our wintertime, the sheep's head bite is going pretty good. You see all the guys are lined up around the bridges and, around the trestles and things like that, catching sheep's head. There's another little good tactic I like to use for the sheep's head is I like to use live shrimp. That's got to be your best. You pinch that little section of tail off, you thread them on a 1/4 ounce jig head, and you drop it down a little bit and you keep it nice and steady. And the sheep's head bite is a lot different than any other fish. Most of the other fish, your grunts, the snappers, things like that, they'll pop it. You'll feel a sharp tap or rap. The sheep's head aren't like that. They'll tickle a little bit. And what I like to do then is when I start to feel that tickle, I'll take my rod tip and I'll lift it just a little bit. And if that rod tip stays still, you stick them, you got them. So that's one of those pretty good techniques that you can use for that. But starting to come up here pretty soon, like last year, we get a pretty good cobia run. And last year, I think it was about March, so it'll be coming up here pretty soon. Kelly actually jumped a sailfish about 8 miles out of Boca Grande, which is, it happens from time to time. It's not something you're going to go out and catch all the time, but that's just, kind of one of those things, just like, man, that's crazy. 8 miles out of Boca Grande, you got, sailfish, jumping a sailfish out of there, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, well, that's, again, why you've really got to be rigged up and ready for anything, because when those fish show up, you're not going to have time to switch out your gear or to, make major changes on the boat at that point. You're going to get one shot at them a lot of times.
Yep, that's just, you happen to have it right there. I had a, free line set up and grabbed a threadfin herring out of the box real quick, and we just pitched it out there because I thought it was, I actually had just caught like a 70-pound cobia. It was like, man, that was a beast. I got like 35 minutes to get that joker to the boat, and I kind of did the same thing, and I turned around and looked, and I thought I saw another cobia fin come out of the water as they were sunning, and I grabbed the rod, pitched it out there, handed Kelly a rod, and I was getting ready to grab another one too, and she's like, all right, I hooked up. And I looked up, here comes a sailfish out of the water. I'm like, no way. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I know preparing for the show, I had the chance to take a look at your Facebook page, look over your website, and it's pretty clear that you try to keep anglers up to date with what's going on. Tell people how they can keep up with what's happening down in your area, and of course make sure to share your contact information with us. That way anybody who's listening in, regardless of where you're from, whether you're down in Florida or from up in Massachusetts, if you'd like to take a vacation down your way, how can they get up with you to get in on some of that action?
Well, see, that's one of the good things about what our area is because we're kind of one of those, and I think I've heard Price and Jay say the same thing about we're one of those fishing destinations. That's where people actually come to go fishing. Boca Grande and the Charlotte Harbor area, great estuary, great fishing, and not only that, you've got a lot of, we're not too far from Fort Myers, we're not too far from Sarasota, so you've got airports on both sides of us. You've got a lot of places to stay, like here on Boca Grande, which is Gasparilla Island, everybody calls it Boca. There's a lot of places, there's a lot of old-timey shops, there's a lot of places, our good friends over on Dearborn Street, Taylor Mills and his wife, they run the Buckings Landing, which there's a lot of history around here, too, as far as those things goes. Buckings Landing was one of those places where they used to run the ferries back and forth before they had bridges and roads and stuff, so that's just, one of those places like that. And, a lot of quiet place here in Inglewood. It's not all the hustle bustle. It's not huge, big city type stuff. It's kind of quiet. It's kind of laid back. We got, you have Publix and Walmart and everything like that, like every place does. But yeah, if you guys want to get in touch with us and come down, you can, give us a call. You can check us out online, webpage. Our business name is Florida Inshore Xtream Charters, and that was kind of my play on words. If you look at the letters, it says FIX. And, how are you going to get your fix? Well, you can give us a call and get your fix. That's florida-inshore-xtream.com. And pretty soon, Price is going to launch his version of our website as well, and that's BocaGrandeGuide.com. And, always give us a call, 941-698-0323. That's our phone line there. Or you can email us at jesse@fixcharters.com. And obviously we have, Facebook, we have Twitter, and all the other Instagrams and all those other things there, too, that you guys can get a hold of us with. And, I'm sure that now that, Jay and I are friends, you guys can look on your Facebook, and you guys can pick us up there as well.
That most certainly.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about the tweaks you guys are making.
Say that again?
Well, I was going to tell you, we were talking about kind of what we've done to y'all's website, just because a lot of people on the shows are always asking about different charter captains' websites, and, sometimes we hear, like, they're not great, or they not enough information, or they're hard to book and all that. And, like we talked about earlier in the show, Jesse and Kelly's website was exactly the exact opposite. They had everything right and stuff. And so what we wanted to do is just spruce it up for them, pretty it up a little, and then add, obviously, some kind of new technology and new features that's going to make their site, web-friendly, mobile-friendly, tablet-friendly, and all that. But, Wayne even said earlier in the show as well that when you go to their website, it's nothing but pictures, and the pictures are amazing to see some of these catches that both Jesse and Kelly have caught and stuff. And so we'll be launching the new site probably in the next 3 to 5 days. And so, again, you'll be able to go to florida-inshore-xtream.com or bocagrandeguide.com. And so both of them will lead you to the new website, and you'll go there, and he'll have, Jesse, you got everything, don't you? Fishing reports, pictures, videos. Blogs.
Yeah, we try to do a little bit of all. We like to have fun, To me, that's why I'm doing this, is because I like to have fun. I mean, if it didn't cost us thinking much, I'd probably take people for free. But I got to be able to support the habit. And a lot of the folks that come fishing with us, you can go to the TripAdvisor site and you can look at that. And I always tell folks, hey, you can put whatever you want to on there. If you had a good time, if you had a bad time, whatever it was, And if you actually go on there and you look at it, you can tell the difference between the sites or the folks that go on the website and all they say is, hey, great job, Captain, or, whatever, little short one thing. Most of our reviews, folks go on there and they've actually sat down, they take a few minutes, they write a nice little paragraph, and they say, hey, look, we had a really good time, and that's who we are. I mean, that's exactly so. When anybody calls me, that's the first thing I usually tell them is I say, hey, thanks for the call, thanks for the email, appreciate it. But, once we're done with here, do me a favor. Go on the TripAdvisor site and take a look. That way you know who you're getting. You know exactly what kind of folks we are, and you know what kind of service to expect, And I'm not going to try to fluff it up. I'm not going to tell you that we're going to take you out and catch the world, but we're going to do our best. We're going to take you out and do our very best to put you on some fish, and hopefully, if the fish cooperate, you won't have a good day. I promise you this, though. You'll have great service and you'll have fun. So,
well, we know that for sure. And, we haven't, Jay and I haven't officially announced it yet, but we'll be reformatting the PointClickFish website sometime in 2016. And we're going to have a lot of featured bloggers and guests, writers, and contributors to the website. And Jesse and Kelly are both we've talked to them, and they're going to start being guests on the website pretty soon. So pretty soon you'll be seeing special articles from Jesse and pictures as well, and they'll be talking about fishing down in Florida because, it's like Wayne said, we like to get different perspectives. Just because we're based in one location, we want to know what's going on all over the world and stuff. So we're just not about talking about one location, just a certain type of species and all that. So, Jesse and Kelly have been kind enough to offer their input and tell us about, especially the tarpon and the grouper down there. And I don't know, Wayne, I think I'm ready to go down there and try my hand at trying to catch one of those big boys.
It's time to book a trip. It sounds like we might be even too late with what's going on. You've got a lot coming up right around the corner.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I tell you what, that's one of those things that we get a lot of bucket lists. Like that's on my bucket list. I got to do it. And every single time, I love to look on folks' face. After that first, not only the first hit, but that first fight. And I always ask them, kind of slyly, I say, so how was my description? Was it just or was it inept? And they're like, dude, you didn't even come close to being able to see. I told you. There's a lot of little rules that go in there with it, but that's one of those fish. When you get hit, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? And it's usually followed by a whole train full of explicit words, So that's one of those things you get hooked up.
And a couple of Advil later in the day.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're like, those are one of those fish that not only are you going to catch it today, you're going to feel it tomorrow.
Yep, most definitely. Well, Jesse, we appreciate you taking time to call in. Before we let you go, is there anything else you want to share? Anybody that helps to support you out on the water, you want to make sure you give a shout out, or anything else you want to share with our audience?
We kind of already talked about a lot of our sponsors. The Hook guys, those are great, and I love their shirts. And Bryce and Jay and I know because we get in there. Mark Davis is all in a huge family. A lot of the guys that are doing that stuff, and they've done such a wonderful job with that product line there. Humminbird is my choice as far as my electronics go, and those are really great systems. They've launched the new Onyx system as well, which is really price point wise, it's really affordable. Really great machine. I love my Pathfinder boat and Yamaha, and I can't really say much more about that as far as we pretty much beat that one to death. But those are the things, our pen rods and reels, we can't do what we do without that. That was probably the biggest thing that we do. So those are a few of the things that we use, and they really work. And I tell you, we put them to the test so that you guys know, and we have a direct line of communication with those guys too. Anytime, anything goes wrong with it, we're on the phone or we're on the email with them and call them and say, hey, this is what's going on. Our Talon, Minn Kota Talon and the Minn Kota iPilot, I tell you what, I've been through a lot of the other brands, shallow water anchors, and I've broken a lot of them, and I've had a lot of them break on me, right at the wrong time. And my new Talons that I've got that I've actually been testing out the 8-foot model for them too. And I tell you what, if you haven't tried those guys out, take a look at those things because those things they're quiet, they're strong, and you stay put. So I really can't say a whole enough about those guys as far as that guys too. But really great stuff. And again, thank you guys for the invite. Anytime you need me to come, take up a whole hour of your show for you, just let me know, and I'll be more than willing to get on and chit chat and talk fishing. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I like to talk and I like to talk about fishing. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it, and I guess we'll talk to you soon.
Amen. Thanks, Captain Jesse. Good talking to you.
Thanks, Jesse. We'll talk soon, bud.
All right, buddy. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Right. Price, it's great to have another caller coming in, another great captain from the South Florida area, really exposing our audience to what's happening down there in those warmer subtropical waters of South Florida.
Yeah, it is great. That's one thing that we enjoy, especially, because Florida is such a popular fishing destination. Peter Miller kind of alluded last week that, they call it the fishing capital of the world and all that. And it's been neat getting to meet and talking to some of these anglers from Florida because, with Florida being such a big fishing destination, it's just kind of, it's very cool hearing their perspective and what, how they fish down there and all that. So it's great to get those comparisons. And obviously, I think people who listen, especially, we got our main fan bases in the Carolinas and Southeast, and I'm sure people love picking up a little tips and tricks along the way when they hear some of these anglers talk about their fishing.
Yeah, well, and then a lot of people, as we said, will travel down that direction this time of the year to go after bucket list fish, as he mentioned, tarpon, Goliath grouper, permit. There's a lot of fish down there that sell fish. A lot of fish on the Florida coastline that just get a lot of attention, and they've got a great fishery down there. So it's great to to have some connections down there where we're able to highlight the changing of the seasons and the stuff that they've got going on. As we mentioned, just great habitat. The only coral reef you can drive to in the continental United States down in the Keys. So you've got that. You've got beautiful blue water. You've got beautiful flats and the Everglades. Just a lot of great opportunities to target saltwater and freshwater species down in South Florida. And I'm really excited. I'm going to be planning a trip down to Miami in March. And certainly in talking to the guys that we've had, in the show the past couple of weeks, it kind of gets your heart beating a little bit faster and gets you excited to take that trip down there. So we hope our listeners have enjoyed the opportunity to learn from some of the best in that area.
Oh, yeah, with our network expanding the way that it is, I'm sure we'll be talking to some more captains in the near future from, in Florida in general. Like you said, Wayne, you got the best of both worlds in Florida, just kind of like we do here with freshwater and saltwater and stuff. And so I'm sure on future shows we'll be bringing you some more guests from different parts of Florida and talk about the species and the fishing and what's going on certain times of the year and stuff. And so we look forward to doing that, and that's why we're excited about having Jesse and Kelly, contribute to the blogs and information to the website, just so people get that perspective, from that area, that particular area of the world. And so, we're definitely excited to have them, and we're excited to, be a part of their business as well, as far as their website is concerned. And so they've been great to work with, and I can't say enough about them. And I hope at some point, I don't know when we'll do it, but I definitely would hope that we can all take a trip down there at some point in the near future and go fishing with those guys.
Yeah, it's an exciting area to visit, and just a lot of fun stuff going on down there. And it's always a lot of fun coming on the air with you guys too, Price. You and Jay have become like family to me, and I look forward to Thursday nights every week. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to continue to bring the content that we bring to our audience, whether it's through our Facebook page or our website, and all the different things that we do, including the radio show. It's a pleasure to be a part of it.
Oh yeah, we can't thank you enough, Wayne, and hopefully Jay will be back next week. I enjoy doing the radio show, but sometimes when I know I have to talk an extended amount, I have to get my little DJ voice ready to go, Wayne. So
Jay's slacking this week, man. What's he
great,
doing, really? We better not give away what he's up to, but here soon we'll have some big announcements coming up. As you said, a relaunch of the website and a lot of stuff on the horizon. So we're really excited about the upcoming spring season, and as you said, really excited to have another quality show on tonight.
Thank everybody for joining us tonight. And again, if you want to check out tonight's radio show or any show that we've done in the past, PointClickFish.com, and you can also find us on Facebook. We'll have normally an images or post of the show that you can go back and listen to the podcast. You can go back to any of our shows. Check out Peter's show if you didn't have a chance to listen to Peter Miller Bass to Billfish. Wayne, you and Jay did talk with Mark Davis with Big Water Adventure a couple weeks ago, and that was a great interview. And so if you haven't listened to any of those, check those out.
Yeah, it's been a great year so far with the radio show, and we're excited to have some more big guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. So definitely tune in every Thursday night, and if you miss us live, make sure to catch it out on podcast after the fact. And until next week, we appreciate everybody listening in, and keep safe out on the water, and we'll be talking to you soon, Bryce.
Good night, everybody. We'll talk to you soon, Wayne. Thank you.
Take care.